Welcome to the Ageless Living Talks. I'm your host, Crystal Carson, and I'm excited to be part of this webinar today on a topic that is really near and dear to my heart, your journey through perimenopause and menopause redefined. Now, I just want to share a little bit of a background on how the session is going to go today. We're going to start out with a little bit of housekeeping, and then I'm going to guide you into a conversation and presentation with Dr. Lim, who is a co-founder of Ageless Living and an expert on hormone health. He'll provide a lot of details that will lead into us having a dialogue. I am a patient of Dr. Lim and Ageless Living, and I'm on my year 3 of a successful, healthy, and healing journey through my perimenopause stage. We're going to go through a series of questions that I still have and I still wonder about, which was part of my process. And then we'll open up the floor to you, our audience, so that you can connect with Dr. Lim to answer some of your questions, because a lot of us, as we go through this journey, feel unheard and unseen. And we want to make sure that today, by attending this session, you get answers to your questions. So, starting out with a little bit of housekeeping, I know that we had some links sent out to you today to join. There was one with YouTube and one with Riverside. And we just want to make sure that if you're joining us on the Riverside mobile app, and if you're having any issues with seeing the screen correctly, that you just need to justify it, log out, re-log in on Landscape, and that should justify it so that you can properly see us today. And also want to thank you very much for being here. We want to award our attendees today with a special giveaway to only the people that are here attending. And this is a great gift. It's actually $500 in value, and you can choose between a SkinCeuticals anti-aging package or a $500 gift card to Ageless Living for any of the services provided. Now, I want to remind you that you don't have to physically go into the Ageless Living clinics. They offer telehealth, and the majority of the services are through telehealth that really help you, including the hormone healing or hormone optimization packages. And we have a special promotion as well. It is World Awareness Month for menopause. And so we've offered our optimization package at a discounted amount of $9.99. So you can use that $500 gift card towards your hormone optimization package. And so I am really excited to be here because I've already gone through perimenopause and already gone through my hormone optimization, and I know what it's like to be on the other side. I know what it's like to be sick, to not be heard, to have doctors normalizing your symptoms, to get test results back that have no answers and say that you're healthy, and go home feeling horrible, upset, sad, and seeing it impact not only my physical health, my mental health, and my relationships. And so I'm really, really excited that Ageless Living is now part of your life, because it changed mine and it transformed mine over the last 3 years. And Dr. Lim, who is going to be presenting today, is one of the co-founders. He is deeply passionate about, honestly, solving all of the problems that we have as patients of Ageless. And he's going to do a beautiful deep dive into what's actually happening in our body. What scares me, and what we're even seeing in the elections right now down in the U.S., is that women's health and women's reproductive health is so underlooked. Only 2.5% of research dollars are put towards this. And so it's so important that we find ways to educate ourselves and find doctors that are educating themselves, which is why Dr. Lim is here today. So I'm going to turn this over to you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm glad to have everyone here joining us live. Some of you may look at me and say immediately, you notice something very obvious, which is that I'm a man talking about women's health. And it may seem a bit unusual, but let me give you a little bit of a background as to how I got into this and why, and how I've become very passionate and interested in women's health, and specifically about the talk today about perimenopause and menopause. So here's me. This is me and my family. And so you can see here that I have 4 women in my family, including 3 daughters. And so that immediately makes me very interested in maintaining women's health. And so here is a bit of a background about me. So I got my medical degree at UBC, at University of British Columbia. I'm an internal medicine specialist. I'm a clinical instructor at the university as well. I did some preventative medicine training in Toronto. then did a year-long fellowship in longevity medicine and anti-aging medicine at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. I'm also a certified neuromodulator and dermafiller practitioner. And for the last 13 years, I've been managing complex care patients. And so this is well within my interests and my areas of training. So as Crystal had mentioned, one of the reasons that I wanted to give this talk was because I had a lot of people and a lot of friends and patients come to me at some point in their life because they were feeling like they weren't being heard. There are lots of studies that have looked at this recently, lots of media coverages about how women have to go through 7 to 9 practitioners before their symptoms are heard and listened to. And oftentimes, a lot of those women would drop out. And so I hear this a lot in terms of hormones specifically, which is the question of, is what I'm going through normal? And a lot of times it can be normalized, whether it's by your practitioner or whether it's by your family saying like, you know, my mom went through it, my grandma went through it, my aunt went through it, and therefore I must go through this. And the next question is that I asked as a man was like, is this what it's really like to be a woman? And does it have to be this way? And I don't think that it does, because obviously as a man, I don't go through these things. And so here are some really common menopause symptoms that people may not fully appreciate is related to menopause. I mean, there's obviously the hot flashes that people think about, but look at these other symptoms here, and you may note that you may be going through some of them if you're around the age of, you know, between 45 and after. So increased anxiety and depressive symptoms. Studies have shown that the incidence of depression and anxiety in women entering perimenopause, so after the age of 45, goes up by 6 to 8 fold. Not 6 to 8%, like 6 to 8 fold. Poor energy stamina, PMS, poor sleep, poor concentration like brain fog, reduced libido and sexual interest, decreased drive or ambition, increased irritability, mood swings, emotional instability, weight oftentimes goes up, right? Around the time as you enter these hormonal changes. You can gain weight. Rarely do you get unintentional weight loss, but sometimes you get skin problems, which I'll touch on later. Loss in muscle mass, which is directly related to longevity, and unintentional physical changes in your body. And obviously, I put hot flashes there at the very end because it's the one that most people attribute to menopause, but it's actually not the only thing that's important. It's probably actually one of the least important things. So let's go through just a little bit of a background. I'm not going to give you like a biology class here, but generally the two main hormones that get affected in menopause in women are estrogen and progesterone. And so what do these do? We hear it all the time. And so estrogen primarily is involved in reproduction and secondary sexual characteristics. So things like, breast formation, especially through puberty. But it also has very important secondary roles like maintaining brain health and brain size, maintaining bone strength, and, skin health, libido. And there are 3 main kinds of estrogen that a woman produces. There's E1, which is estrone. That is predominantly the estrogen in menopause. Okay, and so you're like, okay, well, do you even create estrogen in menopause? You do in the perimenopausal phase, and it's felt to be the most carcinogenic, the ones that is most likely to cause cancer. Then there's estradiol, which is your predominant hormone in your your predominant estrogen in your reproductive years. And then there is the estriol, which is the weakest estrogen, but it's found to be or thought to be the most protective, and it's the one that you predominantly make during pregnancy. In the cycle, which I'll touch on later very quickly, estrogen is responsible for the thickening of the endometrium. And then that gets balanced out with progesterone. So progesterone is the second hormone that becomes dysfunctional or absent in menopause and perimenopause. And its primary role really is in reproduction. And so what it does in a woman's cycle is that progesterone in the second half in the luteal phase, it helps to mature the endometrial lining. And so the estrogen makes it thicker, the progesterone makes it mature, and that makes the uterine lining ready for implantation of an embryo, and so or growth of an embryo. And so what it does secondarily as well is it helps with some secondary sex characteristics, but also is really important in skin health and your libido and your brain health. Okay, it is a neurosteroid. It is meant to balance estrogen. And so when you think about, the reason I'm saying this is you're going to see that when you're looking at hormone optimization, you shouldn't really do one without balancing it with the other. And so those are, it's also used to make other hormones. So here's what happens to a woman's body during menopause. So to define perimenopause, it's the years leading up to menopause, of course, at which point the woman's hormone cycles become quite a bit more irregular. So this is where women tend to describe symptoms where they are missing periodic periods. Like they may miss 2 or 3 months and then they may get it again. And it may come, usually, women who are regular 28 days, during perimenopause, they may skip 2 or 3 months and then they get 2 or 3 in a month. And then they may go back to regular and then they become irregular again. So that's the time that you could feel that the body's hormones are changing. And so why is this important? This is the earliest time that a lot of those initial symptoms of perimenopause and menopause that I mentioned can begin to surface. So things like, mood changes and depression and hot flashes and anxiety. And this is important to know because there's something that you can do to help mitigate not just how you feel, but to make sure that you preemptively treat some of the changes so that you don't have to experience those menopausal symptoms. And menopause really is a time when the hormones really stop. Okay, and so this is seen in this graph on the right side, where during your menstruating years, you have fluctuating cyclic course or doses of estrogen and progesterone. But in the menopause stage phase, all those go away. Okay, so you stop making progesterone, you stop making estrogen, and obviously that leads to consequences to systems that I'll touch on. So let's go back and highlight some of the symptoms, and I'm going to give you some percentage here, okay, because it gives you an idea of how likely you are to experience this. Okay, so hot flashes and night sweats. Studies have shown that 75 to 80% of women feel this, okay? So that means, when you look at it the other way, 20 to 25% of women don't go through this. Migraines, 75 to 80%. Palpitations, again, 75 to 80%. Emotional lability, like irritability and mood swings, up to 70%. Again, quite subtle. Usually it would be a partner who may experience this, either a partner or kids who may be more likely to verbalize this. Poor concentration, brain fog. How many times do you forget where what you're going to go do? Your mind used to be sharp and you're just finding it harder to concentrate and focus and stay on task. Again, really hard to go to a usual primary care physician and say, like, my brain doesn't feel right, or I'm forgetting things, because you're going to obviously be too young for dementia. And so, again, brain fog, really important. We saw it a lot, actually got a lot of media coverage during COVID days when brain fog was part of long COVID syndrome. Anxiety, depression. getting a lot more media coverage now, so more normalized in the sense that it's now okay to talk about this. But before, again, women used to suffer and not really understand why they're feeling sad. Why are they feeling sad or more anxious as they, go through their late 40s? It's because the hormones aren't balanced. Poor sleep, very common. Again, not something that women tend to necessarily complain about, but again, very common and should be important because, sleep is directly related to memory. Decreased libido, sexual interest, also, again, very important for overall health and well-being. Vaginal dryness, irritation, pain on intercourse, and recurrent UTIs. Like most people don't really associate that hormonal imbalance could be the cause of why they're getting recurrent bladder infections. Weight gain, look at that. I mean, I looked at the studies and it suggests an average of 1.5 pounds a year. So if the average time in perimenopause and menopause is between 5 and 8 years, I mean, you're looking at 7.5 to 12 pounds of weight gain that you really don't want. Skin, and I'll show you pictures about this, and we can tell when women go through perimenopause because there's significant changes to their skin. Even if you don't know the hot flashes because that's behind the scenes, or the irritability, or the mental health, you can see that the skin of women, they can become saggy, they lose elasticity, they lose the structure and the firmness and the volume. And look, you can lose up to 30% of your collagen in the first 5 years. Loss in muscle mass, again, really important, and then poor energy and stamina. I mean, again, really not specific symptoms, but together they can significantly alter one's quality of life. And so why is it important to replenish and balance your hormones? I mean, that's the next question, the obvious question, right? So, okay, so what do I do? What's the point? One is to obviously improve your quality of life. Like, as I said and I mentioned earlier, men don't necessarily go through this. We have this thing called andropause, but it's nowhere near as significant. And so why not? I mean, you want to be able to improve your quality of life. It doesn't have to be this way is what I've learned. It doesn't have to be this way. Improve relationships. Crystal has mentioned it already. And I'm not trying to single her out here, but I think that a lot of times during, when your hormones aren't balanced and you're irritable, I mean, maybe people want to be around you less. And so it affects not just your relationship with your significant other, but also with possibly your children. Maintain memory, huge problem, right? I mean, for me, I'm scared to death of getting Alzheimer's. I'm scared to death of losing my mind. And so maintenance of memory is something that's very important to me. And I think to most people it would be. Improve your mood. Who wouldn't want to feel happier, right? I think that's pretty obvious. Maintain health and vigor. I think that's also very important. I think a lot of people are starting to put more emphasis and importance in making sure that they stay healthy and robust physically and mentally. Improve or regain your sexual health. Again, very important. Not necessarily talked about a lot, but sexual health is very important in our overall maintenance of well-being. And then sort of alluding to another talk that I'm going to give in the future is this reduction of the health risks by addressing the 4 horsemen, which is, which are 4 things that cause 80% of deaths among people over the age of 50. And so you really want to prepare your body for the future. That's why you're looking to balance your hormones. And that's why I think a lot of people are coming here to this talk and listening to this podcast is like, okay, well, what do I do? So here are specifics in terms of what the absence of estrogen and progesterone and therefore menopause actually does to your body. And I've separated it into sort of systems. I apologize if this seems a bit medical, but it's the way my brain works. So when you look at the skin, we've touched on that. It's the thing that people see the most, the first and the easiest, right? Loss of volume, sagging skin, dryness, lost elasticity, and then the fine lines. Cardiovascular, really important, obviously. Heart attacks, strokes, cholesterol, diabetes. Brain, in terms of maintenance of memory and your mood and your executive function. It's hard to make plans when you've got like quite severe brain fog. Your musculoskeletal, so your muscles and your bones, building and maintaining your muscle mass, that has been shown to be very important in longevity. Bone density and strength, right? You fracture a hip, you've got a 50% risk of dying. And fractures, right? Urinary, I touched on this earlier. Recurrent urinary tract infections, vaginal dryness, itching, vaginal prolapse, all of these sort of things that could be contributed to by or directly caused by hormone absence. And then sexual, like the absence of libido and pain and dryness. So here is what I would consider, if you had to pretend, like, what is a stereotypical menopausal woman's skin look like. You see here you've got the fine lines. You see here you've got some increased lines, and that's from a lack of elasticity and some loss in volume. Here you lose some volume. And again, more volume loss here and elasticity. That's why you sort of see this wrinkling of the skin. And then here you lose elasticity. And here is what is possible if you look at addressing these things earlier. Okay? And this is not make-believe. This is real. So if you get your hormones balanced and you take care of your skin, I'm not saying, by the way, that if you just balance your hormones, you're going to go from this person looking on the left to the one looking on the right. You also have to take care of your skin. But again, to recognize what needs to be done, you need to create a good, solid foundation and then build upon that foundation for skin. Okay, so I'm almost done in my presentation here. And so some frequently asked questions that I get asked all the time. If HRT, or hormone replacement therapy, is so good, then why aren't more doctors prescribing it? Really good question. So historically, when you look back in the 90s, up until probably 2002, actually, a lot of women were on hormone replacement therapy. And mind you, it wasn't correct because they were getting horse estrogen, which is called Premarin, and they were getting it orally. But nonetheless, a lot of them were getting it. Then this huge study came out called the WHI, which is the Women's Health Initiative, in 2002. And essentially, I can't think of another study that changed practice as much as this one study. And then subsequent studies afterwards. And essentially, it suggested that there was an increased risk of breast cancer, blood clots, and stroke when you went on hormone treatment. Only now, and probably now it's getting more media coverage, but probably more so over the last 5 to 8 years, a lot of the experts in the obstetrics and gynecology world are looking at this, and actually they're looking at this data more closely, and they're realizing that actually the study was flawed. For many reasons. One of it was they were using the wrong products, right? So they were using horse-derived or horse urine-derived estrogen, and they were using a synthetic progesterone. And so wrong ways, they were taking it orally, and so many flaws, and they weren't really balancing it. And so when you really look at, scrutinize the data more, you realize that if you give estrogen in the right way, like topically, and it's a bioidentical, and you use the right formulations and you balance it out with progesterone, what you come up with actually is a 0% risk, which means that you are not protected necessarily from breast cancer or blood clots or stroke. Stroke you are, but from blood clots, but you're not harming yourself either. Okay, and so that's important, because if you can say that those risks are actually not real or not true, then you have all the other benefits, like I said, with the skin and the bone strength and the heart health and the mood. And so again, that's probably why, and it's shifting. What is the next question I get is okay, great. You've told me why, you explained why hormone replacement therapy is important. Okay, well, can I just go get anything? And bioidentical hormones is really what you should be looking for, and it's important. And so bioidentical hormones essentially means the opposite of what I just told you before, which was the predominant medication that women were prescribed in the 90s and early 2000s, was that called Premarin. And it was derived, it still is derived from a pregnant horse's urine. And, in my mind, both philosophically and, from an academic standpoint, it doesn't really make sense to treat a woman with a different species hormones, especially one that's as fundamental to a woman's well-being as estrogen. And so bioidentical essentially means they're plant-derived, but they're chemically identical to what your body makes. And so that goes for both estrogen and progesterone. Okay, and what's important about that is that directly addresses the risks that were shown in the WHI study. Okay. The next question I get asked often is, okay, I'm either already past menopause or I actually don't have very many of those symptoms that you listed, so I'm part of the 15 to 20% lucky people. Why do I need this? And the answer is, again, for those benefits that I mentioned, right? Those silent benefits of like memory preservation and brain health and mood improvement and cardiovascular health and bone strength and sexual health and the skin, right? So it's still important. So moving on from that or related to that is, okay, so what can I do? Is it too late for me? And again, I get asked this a lot. And oftentimes I tell people it's like the gym. Is it ever too late to go to the gym? I would say no. Is it better to go to the gym and start working out when you're earlier? Absolutely. I think you gain more benefits because you reverse a lot of the potential harm that you could develop or potential problems you could develop if you start early. But it doesn't mean that just because you're late, you should never start. And so awareness and recognition is important. And that's what I'm hoping that this live stream and this podcast is going to do is one is going to alert people to be more aware. That your symptoms aren't supposed to be normalized and what you're going through doesn't have to be normal. And there's actually nothing normal about it because if it was, then men would go through the same thing. And so it doesn't, again, awareness, recognition is really important because you don't have to go through this. Early identification, as I mentioned with my gym analogy, it's important. If you can get started earlier, it's better. It's especially, if again, I pick the most obvious example with the skin. If you're looking at skin, if you can prevent the skin from sagging and losing volume, then it would be better than trying to get it all back later. And again, one of the things that I really want to emphasize, and I think general healthcare needs to move in this direction, is you need to be prepared to take an active role in your health. And I think that is really, really important. You need to be looking at how you can be a co-pilot, not a passenger. You want to be a co-pilot. And it's important because you need to not only be involved in your care, but you need to pick someone that you trust that will deliver your care in a way that's more collaborative. Not the kind of way where we're traditionally taught, which is like, I'm the doctor, I will tell you what to do, and you just do what I do, and you never question me. And how does ageless living fit into this? So at ageless living, we are longevity-trained doctors, but we're a holistic group, a multidisciplinary group. And so we take a multidisciplinary team-based approach to your care. So longevity doctors, nurses, naturopaths, holistic nutritionists, gut health experts, skin health experts, all working to look at delivering you a holistic care and a holistic package. So it isn't like, you go get your skin from someone, your aesthetic stuff from one person, and then you go get your weight loss from another person, and you go get your hormones from another person, and then none of them really talk, and they're sort of countering each other's problems. The best ways is to have a coordinated approach. So how can ageless living help me specifically? How can we help you? 3 ways, really, through your menopausal journey or perimenopausal journey. Hormone balancing, which I've touched on today. Okay, it's about balancing using bioidentical hormones. Weight, we talked about 1.5 pounds of average weight gain per year. So an average of 7.5 to
12 pounds at least of unintentional weight gain. And then the skin rejuvenation. Okay, and so here's some of the companies that we use. I sort of put their names up. So things like microneedling and IPL and laser and Dutch test for your urine testing and Sculptra and neuromodulators. All of these have a role in helping you journey through your menopausal years and your perimenopausal years, but again, in a very coordinated fashion. Crystal touched on this earlier today. As part of our, as part of the World Menopause Month, we are offering a special promotion. Okay, for $9.99, you get initial hormone assessment, initial consultation, and a Dutch to look at your hormones. So that's the end. If you're ready to take control of your life and not be normalized and no longer feel normalized and want to be a co-pilot, here's how you get started.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lim. I appreciate that so much. And I will say a big difference that I experienced compared to everything else that I've experienced in healthcare to date was that almost like a symphony of doctors working with you, and me being a co-pilot, like you guys actually listen to me. I come into the clinic with ideas or things I've researched or my travels, and I was actually able to share those things with you, and you would actually go, and also like other doctors in the clinic would go, that's interesting, I've never heard of that. Can I look into that a bit more for you before? I can't really comment. It's medical, if it's medically advisable, but I'd like to learn more. I've never experienced that in my life with a doctor. But I also had to go out and really understand what was going on with me. And I think that's why it's really important that I share my journey today, because I was way early. And I actually saw one of the women in the chat talking about how she's 38 and she's got hot flashes and she's sick. And there's just all these things she's listing down. I'm 43 right now. I was 37 when I first started perimenopause. Now, it also happened to be when I met the man that I thought I was going to marry and start a family. And so in my mind, I was just finally going to do the things that you do when you're adulting and start the family, get married. And my health started to deteriorate. And it wasn't in ways that made sense to me. And my mental health was really, really I run my own business. I've always been an entrepreneur. I need to be on point. And I really have a lot of energy. So for me to suddenly feel like mentally I wasn't there and then started to see my physical health deteriorating, but still feeling so young and just beginning a major stage of my life that is not the end of my reproductive health system, it was scary to me and it was painful and it was hard. I would go into the doctor and I'd go into the hospital repeatedly and get tests done repeatedly with the same problem. And they'd literally tell me, there's nothing wrong. The results say you're healthy, go home. And so, I went through years and talk about weight gain. In 3 years, I gained 60 pounds. I went from size 4 to size 14.
I remember.
And I was on air. I'm a media personality on TV. And I literally quit my job. I didn't want to do my job anymore. What I loved the most in the world was this career in media. And I was too insecure and too unhappy with myself to even do my job that I loved. I lost my passion for it. So that stat of 1.5, God, I wish that was the fact. A lot of us see it happening, seriously, see it happening so much more rapidly and without any answers. You talked about not sleeping. I've had a couple of really serious car accidents, so I suffered from fibromyalgia. So sleeping was always a bit of a challenge for me. But what was really weird for me was I started getting these sleep hunger pains, where I was I would wake up craving food, I was so hungry, and then I'd sleepwalk, and it was the weirdest thing that it's ever happened to me, and I wouldn't sleep. I'd just toss and turn all night, and again, just started this relationship and was in this relationship for 4 years where he couldn't sleep because I was tossing and turning all night. And now he's not sleeping and I'm not sleeping and I'm already not happy. So it doesn't impact your relationships big time. Another thing that was really weird, and this was really hard for me because obviously, you can see I have long hair and I've always had long hair. I'm 43 now, so COVID lockdown, I was about 3 years into it. I was turning 40, 3 years into this and unhealthy. And when we got locked down, we weren't allowed to leave our house. My house was filled with hair. I knew I was losing my hair, but I would walk through my house and vacuum every day. And at the end of the day, there were piles of hair, lumps. I felt like I was a cancer patient. And still no one would tell me. They're like, nope, no idea. No, there's nothing wrong. So there's just like, and again, this is your identity, right? Like this is not only do you, as just as a, like, hair is part of your identity as a woman. It also is part of your age. You really notice how women start to cut their hair and their hair thins after they have children. And that's what I knew. A lot of my girlfriends would lose their hair after kids. Well, I haven't had children yet. I was like, this is not right. Like, why is this happening to me? And then next thing you know, I've stopped getting my period. I was down to like a half a day getting my period. And this is a slow process. And no one was listening to me. And I'm wanting to start a family. And I'm barely getting my period. And it was just like, it felt like one thing after another of just like really noticeable, but no one would listen to me, and like really noticeable things that I couldn't fix on my own. And I'm like, I am a healthcare advocate for myself. I will go find the fix. I was very much into wellness. It just didn't make sense to me. So fast forward, and I started working with Ageless Living, I guess, in 2021, as coming to you guys as a patient. And the first thing you did was look at my hormone health. And I will say, like, when I was going through the traditional medical system and talking to doctors, they were testing me for gallbladder issues. They were testing me for cancer. They were testing me for all these other illnesses. Not once did anyone ever talk to me about my hormones. And what I've realized now in this process is that that is the number one thing. I almost feel like, and I don't want to be super conspiracy theory, but I almost feel like your hormone health actually controls so much of your health that it's a way the pharma companies can keep you sick is by not treating your hormones. Because I literally, like, as soon as we dealt with the balancing, and the process was actually it was pretty painless, right? So like we're on a 21-day cycle as a woman. I did my Dutch test, which was super simple. I want to explain how easy this is. It's just a matter of timing. I did the blood tests, and then I did the Dutch test, and literally it's urine test that's done in a day. It was so easy. I went in and got my blood test done, but and then I got the answers we got them in like 3 weeks. I actually had answers, and all the symptoms that I had you actually told me that they were related to something to do with one of my hormones. And they're like, this is why this is happening, and this is why this is happening. So after almost 5 years of being sick and told I'm crazy, all of a sudden in like 60 days, I had answers. And then I remember picking up my prescriptions, and I was low on testosterone. I had thyroid issues, and then hypothyroidism, testosterone and progesterone. I remember the second day of taking progesterone, and take it before bed, before you go to sleep. I remember waking up, sitting at my desk. I hadn't even had a coffee. I was typing, and I was like, what is happening? Why do I feel like I can think? Like, there was no brain fog. I was like, whoa, my brain's working so fast. Like at 8 a.m. with no coffee. Like, how is this possible? Like it was so quick that my body adapted to this and reacted positively to it. It just blew me away. And I guess one of the questions I have for you is, like, people think about estrogen all the time. Why don't we talk about progesterone? Like, what directly, like, if there's like just a few hit list of symptoms right now, like based on what I shared, like, and how fast progesterone works and how it works. Can you just explain that more? Because when I talk to women, they don't even think about progesterone. It's all estrogen. And it's been the biggest change for me.
That's a really good question. And I'm going to try to answer that, making assumptions based on what my colleagues think. But estrogen, I think, gets a lot of media coverage because it's the predominant driver of symptoms in deficiency when you're menopausal. So hot flashes probably being the number one symptom. And that's traditionally, not always, due to estrogen. What people don't realize is that, and this is sort of maybe not necessarily related to perimenopause, menopause, but it is still, because it has to do with the woman's cycle. And so a lot of people don't realize that, as I mentioned in my talk, estrogen and progesterone need to be in a in harmony. They need to be in balance, okay? And so a lot of women are considered naturally, whether you want to call it natural, estrogen dominant. And you can get estrogen dominance either because you're making too much estrogen when you shouldn't be, or you're not making enough progesterone to balance out the estrogen. Okay? And so that's how you get this imbalance. And what you end up with, and I was like blown away when I learned this, is you end up with very classic PMS symptoms. Okay, so, and I can tell when a woman is estrogen dominant because they'll tell, when I ask them, they won't volunteer this. I'll ask them like, do your 1 week before your period, does something happen? Yes. Okay, I start getting migraines. I start gaining weight. I feel like I'm retaining water. I feel bloated. My breasts get bigger or they become tender. Sometimes I have to go up in a bra size and my bras get tight. And I get really moody, right? And I'm like, yep. Very classic PMS symptoms. And that is because of estrogen dominance. And you can balance it out with some progesterone. And so the reason that progesterone doesn't get a lot of the media attention is because it's kind of thought of as the less important hormone, right? Because it doesn't it does actually. If you're progesterone deficient, you still do get hot flashes, but it's less common. And it's the estrogen, but we realize actually you shouldn't have one without the other. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so that's the unfortunate reality of media, and I have nothing against media, of course, but that's what they latch onto, right? Is like estrogen is the more important one, but you need estrogen to balance to balance that with progesterone.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody's that's attended today is going to get an opportunity to actually onboard to do the questionnaire. That's the intake questionnaire. Normally you have to pay for the package to get access to this questionnaire. And I remember doing it. One of my colleagues and friends did this at the same time because we were both suffering and we were willing to do anything at that point. So I told her I was doing this. She's like, I'll do it too. So this questionnaire actually it's long, but we were both going through it. We called each other halfway through. We're like, do you think it's progesterone? Like, this is insane. I need to talk to this doctor now. Like, I've never felt like actually somebody understands, like, through this questionnaire. And we both came out of that questionnaire process going like, oh my God, I think it's progesterone, which was a big, epiphany for me. And so something else that came out of this whole learning experience for me and why it's so important to do the Dutch test, not just the blood test. So I want to also clarify, because I see this happening to a lot of the women in my life across Canada that haven't gone and done the testing through Ageless that's accurate. A lot of the testing in Canada is not accurate. It's only 50% accurate or inaccurate. And I'm seeing some of my friends actually getting prescribed the wrong amount of hormones and they're getting sicker. Or just it's getting worse. And the one thing that you guys actually taught me was that there's that one indicator of cancer is through that one strain of estrogen. And that by doing the Dutch test, if we did it annually or every 2 years, the same way we do a mammogram or the same way we do a pap test, that we would actually be able to identify any cancer in our body. Can you share a bit more about that? Because that strain of estrogen and that Dutch test for $500 to be able to indicate cancer so fast and so ahead of the time, like that's just, I think anybody should know that.
Yeah, so you brought up a couple of really important points there. And one is this sort of, your journey. And I think a lot of us, myself included, have gone through this journey where you feel like something is wrong and you go be the responsible patient and you try to figure out what's wrong. But these tests come back normal and you're told that you're normal. And this is the reason for the talk, right? Stop normalizing my symptoms. And so what I've learned, hopefully early enough in my career, is that we really should listen to patients more. Okay? And I know that sounds very weird, but physicians don't do it. And actually not just physicians, but actually a lot of practitioners don't do it enough. We don't listen enough. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I say that and why I emphasize that is because people are more than numbers. I'm going to repeat that because it sounds so obvious, but it took me a while to fully understand this. People are more than numbers, which means that I never treat anybody based on just what their number shows. Mm-hmm. I have to look at the number, whether it's the Dutch test or whether it's blood work, and really join it with how they're feeling to put it together to come up with an assessment and a diagnosis and, a plan. So going back to your question about the Dutch is great. It is a tool. It is not the only tool, but it is a tool and an important tool that I use. And what you were mentioning is the Dutch has the ability not just to check your estrogen, your estrogen, all three estrogens, right? The E1, E2, E3, right? And your progesterone, testosterone, and all that stuff. It has the ability to check your cortisol levels, which is important as well for things like adrenal fatigue. And, which I didn't touch about, I know, but that's a whole topic on its own. And it allows us to see how the estrogen in one's body is metabolized. And I think that's what you're referring to, because the metabolism of the estrogen, how the estrogen is then broken down by the body naturally, and whether that increases one's risk of developing cancers. And yes, there are some hydroxylated estrogens that may be more likely to lead to cancer. And so those are things that you want to be able to monitor, because again, it's about safety, right? It doesn't really make any sense to me to help someone's hot flashes get better, right? And their mental health get better, but then cause harm, like
in a big way.
In a big way, right? And cause cancer. And so it is important, even though I said that if you balance them properly, with estrogen and progesterone, that your cancer risk is the same, it's 0% increased, it's still important to look at people individually.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're an individual and you're different than everybody else. And the way you metabolize or break down these estrogens will dictate your risk. And that is personalized medicine, right? I'd like to that's the beginning of personalized medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, very personalized. That it's like I tell my friends, it's almost like choose your own adventure. I'm like, please start with your hormone health. And then from there, you'll feel either your symptoms, there's a lot of things that go away, or you're going to see that there's things that increase. So what happened to me, I started getting really healthy in certain ways, and then other stuff started getting worse. So for example, my gut health, like all of a sudden I was having like pain and in certain things, and just it became heightened, partially because I felt so good. I was aware of what was going on. It didn't feel like a whole storm of things. So it is really about personalized healthcare and choose your own adventure and getting through these different symptoms and different layers. An interesting thing for me was testosterone. So I'm low on testosterone. Men inject it. Women have to put it topically. And one of the fun facts that I learned through this, and I don't know if a lot of women know this, but this is very interesting as more and more women enter the workforce and have been entering the workforce while trying to still be the mother, the wife, all the things. Our daily schedule is based on a man's testosterone levels. Okay. So like in the morning, up early, and then at 3:00, happy hour was created because that's the lowest level of testosterone in a man. Okay. So that's happy hour is you trying to actually make a guy happy because he's not feeling great. So I was like, but men's cycles are 24 hours. So they just keep getting replenished and keep going. And they start their day strong and do that. And then 3:00, or they go for their drinks after work and they go home and like they've got this. And then as women, we're on 21 days. Okay. So what I didn't know is like now that I've always been in male dominated industries and I've always been extremely active with my own businesses. But what was really interesting is my perimenopause, I think, was actually triggered by and enhanced when I went from media into the capital markets and into finance, was extremely male dominated. And suddenly I'm up with the markets in the morning. I'm up with the stock market. I'm traveling on planes constantly. And all these symptoms, like they probably were going to be there a little bit, but they were just out of control. And you asked me, you're like, did you change anything in your life? And I'm like, yeah, everything. So I just think that's interesting for women to think about the fact that it's, again, we always think about estrogen, sure, progesterone, but testosterone. And my libido was incredibly impacted when I was sick as well. And I actually got to the point where, again, wanting to start a family, wanting to get married. And so I went from being really happy with a very happy sexual relationship to I would cry when we had sex because it hurt so bad. And he thought that I didn't want to be with him. Like he took it so personally, or that I was cheating, and he didn't even know. Like he was just so upset because it was like we were together for 4 years, and then all of a sudden, just like suddenly, I don't want you anymore. Like who wants to commit to that for the rest of their life? Before you're even married, like people talk about that happening after you're married or after you have kids. We've done nothing, and I'm like an old woman right now, an angry old woman, and I can't have sex anymore, and I'm in pain. Like, so. My point is that, again, just like I think that the diagnostics and the testing that you guys do and this personalized approach is so important because I had no idea about any of these things and how they impacted my body. And not everybody's been the same, obviously, around me, but it was so nice to actually have some relative information about my life choices that also went into these diagnostics. And you told me, you're like, you're so complicated. Like, I need some time. But you didn't give up. It took, more testing. It took more, but you're like, I got to research this more. But you didn't give up. And I just want everyone here to know that, like, there's hope in having a doctor that doesn't give up on you or doesn't just give you one thing and then shut it down. So there is that I wanted to share. What would you say, combined, like some of the other longevity practices that are outside of the hormone health? What are some of the other practices, like the biohacking that you guys offer, and some of the other combinations of things that women would really notice a difference in? Like, what are you guys doing right now to really address menopause outside of the hormone balancing?
Yeah. I'll answer that in a second, because
Okay.
I just wanted to touch on something that, again, you mentioned there. And I think that is also really important, which is being able to find someone that you trust, right? And I touched on this earlier. You need to, I'm not saying I'm the only doctor out there. I'm not saying that my team is the only practitioner out there. There's lots of us. But you really need to find someone that you trust and that you know that will be a good co-pilot with you, right? Mm-hmm. And so the issue here, or the issue that we face in our healthcare system, is that we're not really set up to address people before they're sick. Mm-hmm. And so you sought medical attention or right before you were actually considered sick, because you didn't quite fall outside of normal range yet. Right? And
exactly.
And I think that's really important for people to understand, because, and I'll give the very, very quick example of this because it's about statistics, and no one likes to talk about statistics, honestly. But normal ranges are based on a population. They're not for individuals. Okay? And I think that's really important for people to understand, because a range, for instance, if your range is a range of normal, let's say 10 to 30, that's not for you. That's for a population. And the reason that that's important is, like, let's say you started off at 29 and now you're at 15 of whatever we're testing, let's say testosterone or estrogen.
Right.
You've dropped more than 50. You've dropped about 50%.
Right.
But you're still normal.
Oh, I see.
You're still normal. And that's the problem, is that the system isn't set up to actually treat you, because you go in and you're like, I don't feel normal, but you're like, but your number is 15. Right, and so you're normal, and so you get normalized. Okay, right. And that's not just with women's health. That's with everything in general. And so it's really important, again, to listen to the patient and really understand where they are and where they used to be. Okay? Yeah. So going back to your other question. Okay, so what else can be done? What else does ageless living offer? And so we really try to be, again, holistic, and what I like to consider, like, at the forefront of, medical delivery. So we have a biohacking. So for those attendees who live close to us, they can come into our facility and they can access things like a hyperbaric chamber, red light, a PEMF mat, Newcom, brain tap, neurointegrator. All of these things, essentially, we use technologies to help promote inner healing. Mm-hmm. The idea is, again, with the hormones, right? It's like a cascade. So you want to start as close to the foundation, as close to the ground level as you can, because to address things close up at the top, if everything at the bottom is shaky, then everything at the top also becomes quite shaky, because the foundation is poor. And so I believe in the ability, the body's ability to infinitely heal. That's how you get these stories of, people healing from cancer miraculously by themselves. That's the whole idea of immunotherapy now for cancers. And our biohacking center is really meant for that. Our biohacking center is, can we use the currently available technologies to help stimulate the body to heal from inside? Mm-hmm. And I think that's way better than helping the body heal from the outside, which is usually like a Band-Aid or a cast or something like that.
Yeah.
We also have an IV vitamin program. Again, all of these require, obviously, we can't deliver this virtually. I would love to be able to deliver IV vitamins virtually, but we can't because they're intravenous. And so this is helping your body to replenish what it's lost, and to be able to give it the building blocks to, again, be able to heal.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done, and this is my own little, like, again, you like learn things, and this is what I love about working with you guys, and as a patient feeling like I'm part of the team. NAD booster shots, only 100 milligrams. It's not the IV. The IV is 2 hours. It's very expensive and it's very time consuming. And I felt very sick, and I actually, it made me not sleep for 2 days. So it was kind of it defeated the purpose because I had too much energy. So I got a 100 milligram NAD shot when I was traveling, and I was sick, and it stopped me from getting a cold while I was traveling, and I felt great. And then I came home and I got the NAD booster shot. Now, I was in Europe for a month. I was in Egypt and Europe. I was gone for 4 weeks, came back to PST time zone. Okay. Went to sleep when I got home, woke up in the morning, got an NAD booster shot for 3 days in a row. And just 100 milligrams, it takes 15 minutes. The first day, I was back to my normal sleeping schedule, and I had no jet lag after the second day. And so, like, and it's so simple, so easy, but it does help so much when you just add these things into your system. And they work, and they're not that time consuming, but they actually have a benefit to you. So I highly recommend, like, for me, the IV and the booster shots and the injectables have been really, really game changing and really efficient, because a lot of women that are going through this are also very busy. I don't have kids, but I know my friends that do have even less time for this. So, and that's actually something I wanted to ask you about, because I still haven't had children, and there's a number of women in my age bracket, millennials, that aren't having children, but we're noticing that we are getting perimenopause earlier in our 30s, not our 40s. So do you know if there's any actual data on that? I mean, I know there's no research done on women really for healthcare, but like, have you seen anything personally, or have you noticed anything where women that haven't had children are going into perimenopause earlier? Is there anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I don't necessarily know all the data surrounding that, but I can give you some thoughts around why you may observe this. And again, I caution against, something that's observed versus something that's proven. And so I don't know. I don't know if it's proven. What I can say, though, is that a lot of women are using some form of contraception. Okay, and that's usually why they're either having kids late or not having kids, and they're noticing some things later in life. Mm-hmm. These contraceptive measures, they have consequences. Right? Especially like birth control, like oral contraception, right? And whether that's progesterone, like Depo-Provera, it's not progesterone, it's progestogen, or like an estrogen-based contraception, it really messes up the hormonal foundation. Okay, and so what women are probably experiencing, rather than actually going through perimenopause, is a dysregulation in their hormones, which actually feels the same. Right. Well, perimenopause isn't really. It's just an actual definition of the time leading up to menopause.
Right.
But the symptoms are not unique to that perimenopause. You know what I mean? It's any fluctuating or erratic hormone imbalance, you'll get the same set of symptoms. And so I suspect, and I postulate, that may be why you're seeing this. It's more so that their hormones are so dysregulated and unbalanced that it feels like they're entering perimenopause when they probably aren't.
Yeah, and so again, back to this whole idea, like, I was going to get married, going to have a baby, we were start a family, didn't happen, we broke up, it ended and carried on with life. But at that time, I was only having my period for 1 day. Now, after working with Ageless Living, I'm up to 6 days a week, or in the week. Like, I get my full period now, which I haven't had for a long. Like, I haven't had a full period for a long time.
6 days in a month.
Sorry, 6 days.
Yeah,
sorry.
Hopefully not 6.
No, 6 days. Sorry, 6 days. Once a month for 6 days.
Hopefully you're not having a period 6 days every week.
No. But once a month for 6 days, because I was only at 1 day, and I was getting to the point where it was a half of a 1 day, right? Which I thought, that's why I thought I was in menopause. It was like, isn't this what happens when you go through menopause? No way when I'm in the 30s. Anyway, when we broke up, it was during COVID, and I went to the doctor and said, hey, like, this is what's going on. Can I freeze my eggs? Like, I want to see if I can freeze my eggs or do something so that I can, when we're allowed to date again and be in public and all that, like, maybe I'll find somebody new. Because it was like the end of COVID. So they put me through the whole process, the gynecologist, and went to Olive, which is a local fertility clinic. The doctors came back and they're like, no, you'd have to do so many cycles of this. You're already not well, like, your health's not good. You're going to be if you're trying to freeze your eggs for like the next 3 or 4 years, because you're just not going to, the data showed that my eggs were like below 10% that I would even get one of the eggs out of the cycle that would even work. Like, it was my chances were so low that they're like, based on this data, you should have frozen your eggs when you were 21.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, that's great because I just turned 40. So that's like, I'm a little late for the bus. So it's interesting is I actually just went back to my doctor and I was like, hey, I've been doing all these different things with my health. I'm feeling so much better. And I'm getting, my periods more than I've had for years. Can I go in and get tested for the fertility clinic, do the fertility clinic to see if I can freeze my eggs? I'm actually just curious what the data will show. So I just wanted you to know I'm doing that. That just happened this week. It'd be really interesting for everyone, for Ageless, to see if that through your program, helping with perimenopause and menopause, that you could actually help somebody be able to go through that process and actually freeze their eggs in their 40s, because women are still having children. Women are having children right now, like in my network, up to the age of 50. So if I can freeze my egg, not that I want to be pregnant when I'm 50, but there's other ways of, if it's your egg, that you can still have a child. So I just want to share that, and share that with the audience, that my doctor's like, wow, that's really crazy that you've gone that far. Like you've progressed that much with your period coming back and you're this healthy, that they would approve this process again. So
I'd be very interested to see what the results of that is. I'm not going to make any claims that I can help people who have less than 10% eggs get more. But but certainly getting your body better.
Yeah,
it is possible, right? I mean, your body is still a living, breathing organism, right? And so you got to feed it and you got to take care of it. And when you take care of it, it will reward you. And so it wouldn't be surprising, but I'm not going to go out there and make any claims to say like, hey, listen, if you have fertility issues, come to Ageless and we'll make you fertile. I don't think that would be appropriate. But
no, you can't do that. But I know that. But what I'm sharing with you is just like in this process where I was completely hopeless and never thought this was ever a thing ever again. And yeah, it's a couple years later and I'm a little bit older than I would like to be when I'm going through this. But the fact that the doctors that didn't listen and I even take my thyroid test in, like I take your test results into my GP and they're like, sorry, no, our tests show that there's nothing there. And I'm like, look at me. They're like, yeah, you look great. What'd you do? And I was like, oh my God. So I'm just sharing this because as part of my journey, there could be hope that I could still have a family later in life. And whether it's with a surrogate or not, all of a sudden, all this work, all this effort, all this investment, it's a financial investment, it's a commitment. It hasn't been easy and it doesn't happen overnight, but it could completely change my future, right? So I just think it's really important that everybody tries to do this for themselves and that they know that the results are substantial in different ways. Okay, well, I would like to now open up the questions to everyone.
I want to just say one thing, though, Crystal.
Go ahead.
You're the perfect patient, though, because you truly did embrace the idea of being a co-pilot.
Right.
And so, again, I cannot emphasize how important that is, okay? I just think that I don't want people to get the idea where, if you take hormones that you're gonna turn into a unicorn. We have to be realistic. Hormones are part of it, but you have to be willing to participate. You have to participate, right? And I think that's generally actually not just with hormones or not with perimenopause or menopause. I think that's generally in any health.
Agreed. I know, and that's true. That's what I mean. It was like choose your own adventure. I'm like, okay, once that was done, then I was like, okay, what's next? What are we going to do next? This is what's wrong next. Like, I wasn't just going to sit back and be like, okay, well, tell me what to do. I told you it was wrong. And that's the mindset you have to have as a co-pilot is like, choose your own adventure. Where are we flying? You don't know where I need to go, right? So like, tell the doctor the destination and you guys get there together. So you just got to have a mindset about it. It's work, but it's worth it because I feel like my mind feels 21. And people actually think I'm sometimes under, like around 30 at 43. And I got ID'd like 6 months ago in the U.S.
Nice.
I was like, you're kidding me. So it's worth it. The results are there. And yeah, thank you for everything you've done.
My pleasure.
So I would love to have the audience be able to ask some questions now. So how are we going to get that? Do you guys want to put some questions into the chat? And the floor is open for you. Need to scroll up? Okay, how am I going to do my... I could read some for you. Please, yeah. Can we go back to the top? Sure.
Okay. Can you post the questions here?
No, I can't.
While you're doing that, I just want to give everybody the number to text to enter the giveaway. So please, for the giveaway for the $500 gift card or the SkinCeuticals anti-aging package, please text 604-690-9643. Again, the number is 604-690-9643 and your full name and menopause talk to enter to win. So just text that in, and you have up till Thursday, which is tomorrow, October 31st. We'll be doing the draw of the lucky winner at 10 a.m. So please get that in and enter to win that giveaway, and hopefully start your hormone health journey with that gift card. And then the other piece is the package. We will email afterwards out the package that's available for the hormone health, the Dutch test, everything that's included in there. We'll get that out to everybody so that they can decide and also go through the whole questionnaire process. I highly recommend it. It's a bit of work in the sense that it takes a little bit of time. It's probably like 10, 15 minutes, but it's worth it. It felt great when I did it. I actually enjoyed it. So I highly recommend that as well. Okay.
The first question is, I have factor V Leiden homozygous. What would you suggest if I'm not able to do hormone therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Factor V Leiden obviously will increase your risk of blood clots in general. I just think it needs to be. You need to go to. I'm not going to provide you with medical advice here because I don't think that would be appropriate, but I can say that it would require a collaboration with some experts. It isn't a closed door. Like I have patients with breast cancer, for instance, who are survivors of breast cancer, so their breast cancer is a remission, that are on hormones. I have people who have history of blood clots who are on hormones. And so, again, I think it has to be a discussion that is had with you and your physicians and maybe your hematologist if you have a hematologist. Yeah, it's got to be a collaborative approach. And so I certainly wouldn't close the door on it.
So the next question is, do you do the Dutch test at your clinic?
So the Dutch test is it can be purchased through our clinic certainly, and then we can ship it to your home. So a lot of our services, as Crystal had mentioned, is virtual or can be delivered virtually. And so yes, you can. We can ship you the Dutch test, or you can come pick it up if you're local, and then you process or you collect the Dutch sample, the urine sample at home, and then you ship it off, and it goes to the U.S.
I'm just going to interject there. I actually took the Dutch test with me all day.
Oh, you did?
Because I couldn't stay home and I really wanted the answers. And you have to do it in 21 days as a woman. There's a specific timeline on that. So, but they're like 6 little pieces of paper and they were easy and it was easy for me to do on the go. So again, it's really worth it and it's not that hard and it all comes straight to you and it was very easy for me to do it on the go.
All right, so Tamara is asking, what is the turnaround time once the hormone test is completed?
What? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the turnaround time, like so. From
just repeat the questions. They can't hear. So.
Oh yeah. So the turnaround. What's the turnaround time for hormone testing? So the combination of the blood test and the Dutch test. Again, this is for Canadians. The blood test comes back pretty fast, probably within 48 hours, and then the hormone test, because it has to ship to the U.S. 2 to 3 weeks. We had a little bit more delay with the recent hurricane in Florida, but I would say 2 to 3 weeks. And so in total, I would say, again, because the hormone test you have to time with these tests, you have to time with your cycle. And so that may alter things. If we happen to catch your cycle and it's just coming up and you're on day 21 and you can collect right away, great. Then it's 2 to 3 weeks. But otherwise, some women, they may pick up their testing and then they have to wait an entire cycle. Let's say they're on day 27 already and they're like, I missed my time. And so now they got to wait all the way until the next day 21 to get the testing, and then it's 2 to 3 weeks from there.
That was me. But yeah. There's a question here about the tests. They're asking if the consultation, how it's involved, do they need a doctor's referral? Is there any coverage for the medical providers? And what's the process look like to onboard?
So yeah,
The testing can be covered. A lot of it can be covered with extended medical. It just depends on people's extended medical. Some of them cover everything. Some of them don't. Some of them will only cover if it's naturopath, in which case, we can help with coverage there. So I would say a majority of our patients who have some form of extended medical can get majority of their consultations covered. What was the other part?
The onboarding process, if you can get it, if they need a doctor's referral. So no
doctor's referral because this is all private. If you want more information, you just email us. You can go either, go online on our website or email us at one of the email addresses that we posted earlier.
Yes, and in the email invite that when you registered, the phone number for the Langley Clinic, and then also the email there. But that can serve anywhere in Canada. So just follow the follow-up emails will be sent out as well with the contact details. But just contact the clinic, and you can literally start right away.
Yeah, and they can send you the instructions of expectations, what's needed to get started, and all that stuff.
Trinia has a question. She says, "How can previous breast cancer patients be treated for menopause?"
Yeah, so I think I touched on that earlier when I answered the original question of the factor V Leiden. Let me repeat the question, actually. Sorry. The question is, if someone had breast cancer before, can they be treated, or how can they be treated? And the answer is carefully. I'm not trying to be short in that answer, but that's truly the fact. It doesn't mean that you can't be treated. As I mentioned earlier, I have patients who have had history of breast cancer, and they're on hormones. Again, the risk is a 0 when they're properly balanced. But it's important to follow things like how your estrogen is metabolized, like Crystal had mentioned, through the Dutch test to make sure that you're not increasing your risk of breast cancer recurrence, and also to make sure that it's balanced, the estrogen and progesterone.
Okay. Thank you. Is taking progesterone the same as taking the birth control? No. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's definitely not. Just as a point of reference, doctors took me off birth control. I only took it from the age of 17 to 20. And after I had such bad side effects from birth control, all the injection, everything, that the doctors would not allow me to be. I haven't taken birth control since I was 20. And so, anyway, just want to give you that personal, but you go ahead and answer it medically.
Yeah, and I agree with what you just said. It's obviously not. But I just want to give you a not so long-winded answer to oral contraception. And so just to give you an idea, oral contraception is either or hormonal contraception. Let's just call it hormonal contraception because it can be injected. Is either estrogen or progesterone, but it's actually not estrogen or progesterone. And the reason I say that is like it's chemically not the same. And it's a synthetic estrogen or a synthetic progesterone. So they're called progestogens. And the reason for that, without becoming too philosophical, is because that's what can be patented. From a pharmaceutical standpoint, you can't patent progesterone because it's a naturally occurring hormone. And so what you're actually getting, like, for instance, Depo-Provera, is a progestogen, which is, it kind of looks like progesterone, but kind of not. Actually, when you look at the chemical structure, it doesn't look like anything like it, but it's supposed to kind of look like it. And it is definitely not progesterone. It is definitely not anything that your body makes. Because if it was, no one could patent it.
Right. All right. I see another question here. If somebody's already had the Dutch test done and blood work done, can they still work with you and bring you the results?
Yes. And so usually we do try to save people some money. And so if you've already had the testing done that is similar, we can add whatever else is missing. If you've had a Dutch test that's within the that's reasonable, say within the last 3 to 6 months, we can probably use that. Or again, it all depends, right? So the example I would give would be like if you had a Dutch test, say 6 months ago, but you have clinically or your symptoms have changed dramatically, then it would probably be in your best interest to get tested again. Because otherwise, you did a Dutch test before when you were feeling a certain way and now you feel completely different or significantly different. Like you shouldn't be making decisions on a test that isn't correlated with your current symptoms.
Great. And I will say, actually comment on that as well, because I went into my gut health program with Dr. Boxer at the clinic after. And what was so cool was that all these tests that the naturopaths, other naturopaths wanted to do, they're $600 here. All these they're expensive. Like, it's expensive to get the right answers. And nobody will lie to you about that. But he actually had a little system in place of like diet and a couple supplements that caused a certain reaction. So I didn't have to do the test. And he could, within 30 days, diagnose me and then get me on track for the program. So you guys are very creative in helping people being able to afford the treatment as well. And also the other thing they do is they design your plan based on what you can afford. So you kind of get a budget of like, I can afford this much. What's a priority? And then figure out a plan. And, you know, if you get more money, you can pay for, you know, more things to do, but you definitely are in it for the long-term success, not just trying to upsell, which is great. So question from Sash, if she's still on air. What role does thyroid play? Some of the symptoms of hypothyroidism are similar to menopause. How do you know which is which? And is just testing enough?
So, that's a good question, because actually you'll see that a lot of hormones, their symptoms they overlap, right? And so what you really need to do is you need to have an experienced practitioner who can listen to your symptoms and look at your labs and maybe extended labs to look at more extended thyroid function to see whether, you know, which hormone was more likely, not necessarily the only thing, but more likely to be causing you problems. Okay? And so, like, for instance, I'll give you a very, very generic example. Hypothyroid or low thyroid function can cause fatigue. And same with low estrogen, same with low progesterone, actually same with low cortisol, and same with low testosterone. And so if you could just imagine, like, this is why most practitioners don't like seeing fatigue as your only symptom, because it could be like 1,000 things.
Yeah.
But to really try to tease out whether it's your thyroid causing it, if it was your thyroid, you have to look at some other low thyroid symptoms, such as like, you know, decreased bowel movements or more constipation, dry skin, you know, feeling cold. That's probably the more sensitive one or specific one. Like, you feel colder than others. You know, everyone is warm and you're cold, and you know you're in the summer and you're wearing a long sleeve t-shirt.
Yeah, my feet would freeze.
Yeah.
Like,
so
frozen.
when you look at those things and you start thinking, okay, well, if you have some of those things, yeah, maybe some of your fatigue is caused from the low thyroid.
Yeah, the cold thing was really weird for me because my feet would feel like I was walking outside with my shoes off in the snow, but it was hot out.
Yep.
Like, it was crazy. Okay, so Judy has a question. I haven't had a period for decades and I'm in my late 50s. The doc literally told me I'm just depressed and need to go on meds. I asked for hormone tests and was told that I'm wasting time and the system's money. Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. So what was the question here? I was told by another physician to ask for a referral to see a specific gyno, and my GP told me I would just be wasting their time. Wow, look at that. Holy. I guess, like, those comments, thank you for sharing them, Judy. I guess if you're still looking for, as what you've heard, if you're still looking for answers, you know, Dr. Lim is here to help. And I would definitely inquire, because it sounds like don't go on depression meds when you can just become a better, happier, healthier version of yourself.
And that is, again, consistent with what I had mentioned earlier, right? Which is, there was a study that came out of the U.S. that showed that on average, for women going through perimenopause and menopause, it took on average 9 practitioner visits before they got an answer.
Yeah.
And that 9 actually doesn't, and I haven't looked at all the data, but I suspect that 9 doesn't even take into account the people who gave up well before they got to 9.
9's a lot.
Or
that they can afford it.
That they could afford it. Again, this is U.S.-based data,
yeah,
right? But in Canada,
it's 9 specialists. So, like, people just keep going to different doctors that specialize, and they got no answers. Like, it takes them up to 9, and that's the ones that can afford it. So the data is
very skewed.
Yeah. There's when you talk about, like, data being skewed, and you were saying that that's an average of population, there's 1.6 billion women that are going to be in menopause by 2030.
Wow.
how the hell is that data going to work?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to find personalized healthcare because otherwise you're just going to be sick. Like, that 1.6 billion, like, I don't know. Like, that just scares me right now.
Well, if like my data showed, if 70 to 80% of them became anxious and more depressed, that's a lot of people.
Like, it's
I think that would affect that would touch every other human being's life on the earth.
right, with no answers.
Whether it's your sister or your aunt or your mom or your significant other or wow.
Yeah. I mean, and look, a lot of people are suffering. It's funny just because a lot of this started, I started working on all this stuff on myself during COVID when we were in lockdown. I was in Canada, and then just not seeing people in general. And then people have seen me, and they're like, because it was about, I'm like 2 or 3 years in now. And they're like, what the hell did you do? And I'm like, yeah, it's crazy, right? And then the same thing, everybody's got the same symptoms. And men too, like the wives and the women that have partners right now, the men's testosterone, it's really interesting. I got my ex to actually start doing it because his GP actually told him it was low and he didn't take anything for 10 years. And I was like, you're going to get really sick. And I noticed even in a man with just testosterone, like how much better he was in such a short period of time. So, I mean, I think we should just be talking about hormone health in general, not just amongst men and women in relationships and like that whole idea of depression and mental health.
I agree.
All right. Let me just see. I think that was one of the last ones. Oh, no, we got that. Oh, did you? Okay, I'll just do that. Thank you. Okay, what role does... Oh, wait, got that one. Can you prescribe HRT after you see us?
I'm not sure what that question means, but the answer, just to answer that question specifically, yes.
Yeah, so they do
we
the
can
tests.
prescribe HR or hormones in general. I wonder if that's coming from one of our U.S. U.S. attendees.
I see.
In which case, the answer still is yes. There are more details that we need to discuss, but yes, the answer is yes. We can either ship it directly to you from Canada, or we could share the prescription with you, and you can get a local physician to order it. That's what some of our clients have done.
Yeah.
Or some of our patients have done. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you prescribe testosterone for women? Yes.
Yes. And so,
what are the odds on that, though? Like, how many women need testosterone?
Again, it's very personalized, right? And so I listen to the woman or listen to the patient and just see whether it's something that would be of benefit. One of the thing about personalized care is that I see it like there's a certain threshold upon after which you've gotten sort of the main health benefits. Okay, once it's balanced, and then after that, it's kind of more based on symptoms. And so, one of the things, one of the ways that I personally practice is that I want to meet people where they're at. Okay, where they're at in life. And so, if their life is one that, for instance, they desire more libido, then once they've sort of reached that health threshold for their hormone balance, then we can sort of tailor their hormones for that, right? And the answer to the testosterone specifically is yes, we give testosterone. We can give a cream. Certain women get pellets. I don't like pellets just because it doesn't allow me. It's more. It's certainly more permanent, not permanent, but it's longer lasting, so it's harder to adjust. And the way that I see it is like life is not static, right? If I could say, I mean, few of us are fortunate enough to have a very static life where nothing changes. Actually, that doesn't sound that exciting. But most of us live a life that changes, right? Whether, you have kids and the kids are getting older and they're maybe moving out and they're maybe moving back in, or maybe they're whatever, or you get a career change. Life changes, which means that your body changes and it requires monitoring, right? Because hormones have to be adjusted based on where you are in life and what's happening with your life.
Yeah, and that actually, there's a question about if a woman's not had her cycle, like so she's not had her period for decades, does the Dutch test does that even need to be done?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
And why? I'm curious. Like, what do you mean by that? Because we still have our hormones in our body even when we stop having our period.
Correct. So, for instance, the best example would be someone who's had their uterus removed, right? So, someone who has their uterus removed obviously they can never cycle,
Right.
right? Because they don't have any uterine lining to shed. But as long as their ovaries are still in there, they're still making estrogen and progesterone.
Okay. Got it. So it's just, yeah, okay. That makes sense. Hopefully that answered it for you, Judy. And then I got another question. What happens when you want to take HRT but no provider wants to prescribe it to you? Go to Ageless Living.
Yeah.
They'll get you answers.
Yeah. And again, our services are provided virtually. And so, we meet even actually our local patients. I would say probably 80% of them, 90% of the time, even when they're coming for follow-up, they would just prefer to do it virtually. And so we can do it by phone, we can do it by video, or you can do it in person. And so, yeah, I mean, as Ageless Living expands, there may be a clinic opening up near you, and that's easier because we do create the same personalized care throughout all of our locations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, most of the time I do everything virtual when I'm here. And we got one more question. Do you prescribe estrogen face cream?
Estrogen face cream? No, I'd have to say no. I don't actually prescribe estrogen face cream. I mean, I have estrogen cream, and sometimes I use estrogen locally, like through like a vaginal cream to help locally there. But estrogen face cream to me doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. I mean, I know I spoke to the estrogen about the estrogenic or the skin consequences of having low estrogen and progesterone, but those issues or those consequences can be addressed with balancing your systemic hormones. You know what I mean? Like your body's whole hormones, right? Like your entire body's estrogen and progesterone rather than localizing it on the face. Because when you localize it on the face, it's just going to go in your body anyway. And so the worry is like if you put estrogen on your face, is you could get transference because when you put it, it takes some time to absorb. So usually like estrogen creams, they usually takes, up to 2 hours to fully absorb. In which case, if you touch people or people touch your face, then you can get transfer of that hormone onto someone else.
Yeah.
Right? And so we usually tell patients when you're going to put estrogen on to do it after you shower and to put it on somewhere like behind your knees where people are less likely to touch.
Yeah.
Same with the testosterone creams.
Yeah, that's how I do mine. I do it. I'm going to mention this just because it's actually from a patient that I referred to you, and she's really happy with everything she's done, but she's gone out and done something. She goes to your aesthetic team and everything for her skin, but somewhere from another doctor, she got estrogen cream and she's using it on her face, and she's feeling like her skin's glowing and it's like just looks better. So like, do you have any comment on that from an aesthetics perspective? Because I actually noticed a difference in her skin. I'm like, and I knew she was going to Ageless. She's like, actually, like Ageless is great, but I just started from another doctor that she has from out of town. Her naturopath, she got this cream and she started putting it on her face, and she's noticing a huge different reaction. So what does that mean? Or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, there may be some local estrogen. If you have small amounts of estrogen in a cream, it can act locally. And improve the skin that way, I guess.
Just a different reason to take it. It's not going to be helping you with your hormone balancing. So
That's right. That's right.
Okay, cool. Judy wanted to know if you mentioned that in Canada the services can be covered. Will you be sending a breakdown of your services and costs? I'm going to mention, Judy, we'd love for you to, and our Devin who works at our clinic will be reaching out to everybody who attended today to do the questionnaire for the intake questionnaire. That's normally not complimentary. So she'll be able to answer all your questions and provide you with all the information and all the services and any costs associated with that, and just have that one-on-one dialogue rather than us sending out everything to everyone. So we'll be reaching out to you directly, and when you can go from there.
Yeah, and we can work, like I said, with you to try and get as much of our services covered by your extended medical. So whatever receipts or that you need.
That's great. I think we maybe at the end of our questions? Did we get, Dan, are there any other questions that you saw?
That's all I saw.
Okay, great. All right, can we put the slide up with the texting, the number to text in again for all the ladies? I just want to make sure that everybody got this. And here's actually, we'll go, go up to the text. Go up, one more. Yeah, if we can put this on the screen though. Sorry, I just want the ladies like on the actual full screen for them to read.
Here, I'm just looking at the chat again. That helps.
Yeah, well, I just,
The text giveaway.
yeah, or the text giveaway. Yeah, I just wanted to be able to pull the slides up. Actually, can I get
Can
you?
you broadcast this?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Swap the,
Here.
cable.
I'll do it.
Yeah, we shall broadcast it.
That'll do.
I'll do that, and then I can just go through it. Oh, what's going on here? Oh my God, what did I do? Sorry, everybody. Good at talking, but not this program. Okay, so again, everyone that was here today and joined us and took the time out of their schedule, we really appreciate you. It means a lot to us because we really do want to help. I do. I really want to see this change for women and women's healthcare. So please text the number 604-690-9643 and text in your full name and menopause talk, and Devin will be in touch for the winner. And that is a $500 value. Again, you can use that towards any credit at the clinic, virtually or in person. And also, or you can choose the SkinCeuticals $500 anti-aging package. And then the hormone balancing package. So this covers your Dutch test, which we've talked a lot about today. So it's a $550 value. And then the initial consultation and onboarding and, the personalized healthcare that we've talked about with Dr. Lim. We've discounted that to $999 from $1,200. And again, if you win that gift card, you could credit that. And also, it could be a really great Christmas gift for someone in your life. So think about that.
Are you showing them the $9.99?
Oh, it's not. It's
Okay,
not.
no, that's fine.
No, it's not flipping.
No, this is just us.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it's going live here. That was correct on the screen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, it is?
Good. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you guys, I'm so bad at this. I'm really sorry. How do I go back? Oh, wait a minute.
Just use your arrow key.
Arrow. Okay. Sorry. I should really do better. Okay. So this is this one. Also, it's, the holiday season's coming. There's people with birthdays. I would highly recommend, even if you want to buy a gift card for one of your family members or your mom or your sister or your wife, just think about like the gift of wellness, because everybody comes out of Christmas wanting to feel better, and you can give them the gift of that. And this is a great way to do it. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. I talk about it all the time, and you can reach me directly. You can reach me through Instagram. You can reach me through my website. I have a lot of women reach out to me because of what I've gone through, and so I'm happy to talk to you. And if there's any other way I can help you, I'm there. And then here you go. This is some of you were asking about the email address, the website, obviously, and that's the phone number. If you want to call Devin yourself, you can wait instead of waiting for her to call you. You can contact her to get that questionnaire and get onboarded in the system and learn more about how to start your healing journey with ageless living. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Till the next one, and there will be more. So we'll keep in touch with you for the next Ageless Living Talk.